Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 116 of Gaston's Great, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we are coming to you once again from the international headquarters of GSM Services right here in downtown Gastonia. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We have Troy Phillips with us today. Troy is the head basketball coach at Hunter Huss High School, and somebody that I've known for a few years. I have really been looking forward to this conversation. So, Troy, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, something we like to do, before we kind of get into the specific topic is, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself, anything that you'd like to share.
All right. Well, thank you for having us again. My name's Troy Phillips. I'm the head boys basketball coach at Hunter Huss High School. I'm a Gastonia resident through and through.
Just like me.
Yes, sir, through and through. Grew up in the city on West Gastonia, Camelot. Young man that just fell in love with just being a part of the city. Used to sneak up to Hunter Huss when I was a kid and watch the old guys play.
Yeah.
Sean Smith, Junior Florence, a couple of my greats, Anthony Jackson, watch Coach Blaylock, G.C. Hurl do his thing. I used to sneak in and peek in the window because I wanted to be just like those guys.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of funny coming up in the city, and my grandmother passed when I was in like the 7th grade, and my mom had to move to Clover, and I was just like, I'm never going to get to go to Huss. But my uncle fortunately moved and bought a house right into my old neighborhood.
Okay.
And so I was able to get moved in with him and get a chance to go to Huss and play for Butch Blaylock at Hunter Huss High School. And with doing that, it just was the best 3 years of my life. And leaving to go off to play basketball at Highland Community College for a couple of years, coming back home, working in the community, and get an opportunity to come back home and coach.
Yeah, I would bet. I just, knowing you, coaching at the high school you went to, I mean, that's just got to be one of the coolest things ever, isn't it?
Yes, it's the coolest thing ever. The funny thing was it was kind of shaky how it all happened, but I was over at Gaston Day. We was doing great over there. And
you're coaching the girls team, right?
The girls team, yes, sir. And Coach Wallace, former head coach, gave me a call and said, hey, you like to come back? I said, I thought about it. And he said, he thought he had several years left and kind of work and see if it's something I would want to do one day. Yeah. Not knowing last year that Coach Wallace was going to be his last year. Great guy. Actually, we coached against him last night. He's actually at Ashbrook now.
Oh, is he?
He's assistant coach there. Yeah. So great job with those guys. They got us last night with a 72-70 victory. Shout outs to them. Those kids played a great game. All the kids left their hearts set on the floor, but they came out on top. So, kudos to them. But coaching with him, and one thing led to another. Coach Wallace was out, put in the interview, and they hired me.
Yeah.
And my goal when I took the job was to build men. Wins and losses are important. We lost a tough one last night, but when you take a team that was with a 2-point-something GPA, several kids with a 1-point-something GPA, and this year, after the first semester, we had a 3.74 team GPA.
Wow.
That's big time.
Well, that's kind of a lead into what we want to talk about. Before we go there, just a little background. Troy and I met. We were trying to figure out how long ago it was. I can't remember. I can't remember what happened a year ago, right? Hardly.
Right.
But I do lose track of time, and I should have looked it up specifically. I'm sure Janet can tell me immediately, right, exactly when it was. But I had the great fortune of I used the word coaching. I'm not sure it's not the coaching that Troy's talking about, but I was fortunate, and a good friend of mine, Dustin Letts, we coached a youth basketball team through First Methodist Youth Sports Program several years ago, and Troy's son, along with Rachel and Dustin's daughter, and we just had it was a blast. We had a great team. When they're that age, basically we're just trying to shepherd the kids along. And when you have such great players, we actually won the little league championship that year.
Sure did.
But it was such a great group of kids. They got along so well. The parents were great, And I coached on and off through First Methodist for 12 years or so. I'm telling you, that wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
Even at those younger ages, I'm sure you are aware, most of the time it's not the kids; it can be the parents that that can be an opportunity. We like to say,
yes,
but I just want to throw that out there because I've known Troy and his family and just think very highly of him. And again, that's one reason I heard about what he was doing and trying to accomplish over there at Huss. And so I wanted to bring him on and talk about it. So with that kind of intro, kind of give us, kind of before we started recording, I kind of said there's one specific item that I've heard about that you're doing through with an association with First Baptist Church. I don't want to necessarily limit to that because, you just mentioned something pretty dramatic, right? The GPA change. I mean, that's just that in of itself would be worth talking about. But just kind of talk about anything and everything you want to kind of share about what you're doing there and the impact that you're having there with those kids.
Well, first off, we got some great kids at Hunter Huss that sometimes get looked over. Sometimes I think it's just because the area that we grew up in. So with growing up there, I understood from years of playing ball and watching the kids at Huss, we have really great ball players. But a lot of times our ball players don't transition to higher education because I don't think we always take that. We're thinking about the win. Like the win would have been great last night for bragging rights, if that's what you want to call it, and all that.
Especially against the Green Wave, right?
Right, against the Green Wave. But we want to win in life. And just to piggyback off of what you just said, what you led into, that's what I learned from the year that you coached my son, is that it wasn't about the win. It was about those kids just having fun. And I was a coach. I was a coach's coach. I wanted the best players to play all the time and all that. Last night we had 3 guys that were out, 3 key players for team rules. We wasn't able to play.
Oh, wow.
3 key players. But it's bigger than this. And it was tough because it's the Ashbrook and House game. I got to sit 3 of my main guys out.
Wow. That's
3 of my main guys out because it's bigger than basketball.
Yeah.
It's about where we're going to see you in 3 years.
Yep.
And so my goal at Huss was to bring it back, the game. It was exciting. It was fun. But guys that didn't get an opportunity in some games got an opportunity last night to show it because they done what they needed to do to be part of that team. And so we got guys that from all walks of life. We got both parents in homes. We got single mom groups that's raising their boys. And then sometimes I'm the only guy. Sometimes they might be checking them on some of the kids, not saying all, but making sure they're doing the right things and all of that. So my goal was to make sure what I told Dr. Denton. Please give a shout out to Dr. Denton.
Yeah.
All those guys at Huss that really gave me an opportunity was to build men. We go in, if we build men, winning ball games, it'll happen. And so my goal was to make sure that these guys understood that, when the air goes out the ball, I got something else in life I can pick up. And that's what we talk about. The ball is always not going to bounce back.
Right.
Because when it comes out, and my goal, I heard John Thompson used to have a basketball in his office with no air in it. And that was the kind of talk that he gave. And so I wanted to make sure that I did that, pay it forward and help our kids to understand there's so much more in life than winning ball games.
Yeah.
Because it's just a game.
Is it fair to say, too, that we've come to our society in general, it's all this short-term results and winning now, and I find it harder to get younger people to look long term,
right?
And so to me, that's one thing I just heard. You didn't say that exact words, but that's what you're talking about, right? You're talking because to your point about John Thompson, who's another just great. Obviously, he's a great coach, but I've studied him a little bit, read a little bit about him. He was obviously about more than that too, right? Than just the winning. And you had a great Hunter Huss player that went and played for him too, back even before my time. Yeah, that would have been something else, right? I wasn't around to see this, but it would have been something else to see Sleepy Floyd and James Worthy go at it back with Ashbrook and Huss back in the day, wouldn't it?
That would have been awesome.
So again, sorry to interrupt you there, but just keep, what, not sure where to go with this because you're the expert here. How did this what you're talking about, how did this transition into this, initiative or program? I'm not sure the best way to do it. This idea that you had about getting them involved, this specifically, say, with First Baptist Church.
Well, my thing is I want to try to get our kids in the community.
Okay.
I feel like the community give a lot. They come and support at games and doing all that. Our job is to get the kids in the community and show them they're more than just basketball players. They can articulate. They can speak well. They might grow up on this side of the tracks, but it doesn't mean that they can't get up and be just like any other kid in our community and in our city. We don't have the best facilities. We don't have the best stuff for our kids, but my thing is to get them before people to see that they can do it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we could get support for those kids to help them to get out. Because sometimes a lot of our kids don't get a chance to go off to school because financially they just can't afford to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sometimes they make great grades. They may not able to make the grades for some of the honor students on that level that we may not get that scholarship or that offer. But sometimes we have people in our city that can say, hey, it's a kid over there at Hunter Huss. I met him over at First Baptist, and he got up and spoke well, and I went and talked to him after the thing. We hung out for like an hour and a half over there and talked with everybody. Didn't nobody look like us. The kids was, like, okay, this is a little different. But, I said, you got to have the gift. I said, the thing you got to understand, just because people don't look like you, you hear those stories of what happens, everybody's not bad.
Yeah.
We got some great people.
It's kind of like what I'm talking about. It's kind of before we started recording, I kind of made that comment about why we do this podcast. Right. Is because my daily experience is not what you hear in the news, right?
Yeah, you will.
Of course, there's these individual situations that get reported on all the time, but day to day, that wasn't an experience I had back at First Methodist when we were coaching kids, right?
Exactly right.
It's not my experience here with our customers, the community work I do. That's just not my daily experience. But boy, you would think that's everywhere, right? That's just, to your point, that's just not the case.
Because who would have thought I would meet Mr. Steve Long, Caroline and Dustin Letts.
Yeah.
And I still talk to Dustin. It's Father's Day. We always send the text to each other. I always reach out. Hey, they're some of the best dads I know, right?
Yeah.
And who would have thought? A little boy that grew up at 2043 Camelot Court. I'm talking to Gaston Sheet Metals, Mr. Steve Long. You feel me?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I can high five one of the top heart surgeons in our city, in the triad, and I'm able to have a conversation with him. That's how beautiful Gaston's county is.
And frankly, I don't know. We don't think twice about it.
Don't think twice about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get a talk. Our schedules are busy. We hadn't had coffee, and we've been trying to have coffee.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But look at it. It happened. We're here today. We might not have had coffee, but we're here talking.
So, for those that haven't heard, you go back 2 episodes. We had Dwayne Burks on, who was just recently announced as the what's the word? Senior pastor, yeah. I couldn't come up, I was going to say lead pastor. That's not what they call it, but senior pastor at First Baptist Church. So he touched on it a little bit, but he was intentional to not steal your glory, to explain. So for our listeners who maybe aren't familiar, just explain some of the specific things that you guys are doing.
So one thing that me and Dwayne, he came over and we talked, and I remember him back from a long time when he was in the school system, talking with him, and we talked about our guys. And one of the things that I wanted to do for our guys is we're going to start with Dr. Tammy Reel at Huss, job coaching. Yep. She's going to start hopefully this week coming, talking to our guys, helping our guys get jobs so they can afford to do some things that they want to do. So Dwayne and I kind of got together and we started talking about some things. And so one of the things that I really wanted to do was high dress. that I think is important. Having our guys to dress them out to go to ball games. And so he kind of wanted to know what I was talking about. I say, one thing, I want to make sure our guys feel comfortable in a suit and tie.
Yeah.
I say, it's important. And so
that was something that a lot of people would probably take for granted.
Right. And I say, because I have guys, when we went to the church, that called me, over half of our guys, we took over 20-some guys. What do I wear?
Yeah.
I just have holy jeans and sweatpants. I say, we get some khakis. I don't have any khakis, you know.
Yeah. I
say, well, put on the best thing you have. And so I was in raising money. We started a little team fundraiser. It didn't work very well. And Dwayne Burks, First United Methodist, Miss Jennifer Davis, they got behind it and they started pushing it. We was raising money. We got all the guys fitted and sized up and everything. And so we came up a little short, and we still haven't been able to make it happen. So Dwayne's been helping me and working with trying to get it done. So much so that Joseph A. Banks reached out. The headquarters called and reached out. And tomorrow we'll be at the ribbon cutting at the new men's warehouse for them. Unfortunately, we were not going to be able to dress the suits out because we came up $1,400 short. We're still working on getting that together so we can get the everything taken care of.
All right. I'm going to stop you just briefly right there. All right, listeners, did y'all hear that? We'll make sure, before we finish, we'll make sure that any listeners know how they might be able to help with that, because that's part of the point too. I'm just going to tell you, it's not just to bring awareness. There might be a listener out there that says, "Hey, this is great. How can we help?" So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no problem.
Sometimes that's I want to make sure our listeners heard that.
Okay, good deal. And so it's happening.
Understood.
The kids are getting in the community. May not been able to get everything we wanted, but the kids are in the community. People seeing that our kids are smart enough, they're good enough, and you can make it. And that's what I try to impact them with every day. God knows I want to win. I'm a basketball and I'm a competitor. But when you see kids win in life, because the reason that we do this and all of this came together with me and Mr. Burks, because I was tired of being at Huss and watch kids that left their heart on the floor come in the next year, and they're still in the city. Some of them working, some of them are not. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
For whatever case that may be. They're in the streets. And it's all because I feel like, for me, it's my job, it's my duty to make sure they're prepared to move to the next place.
Right.
And if they're not prepared, I failed them. Got a quick story I wanted to share with one of my kids.
Okay. This is good.
No name. We had a game. I don't want to get emotional, but
it's okay.
Couple Saturdays ago.
Okay.
And we went to the game, played. We didn't win the game, but we played great. So on the way home, the guy said, "Let's stop at Chick-fil-A, Coach." I said, "No problem." Pulls in Chick-fil-A. Everybody gets off the bus, and I'm looking around, counting, see. I'm like, I'm missing one. So I told Z, I say, "Z, go on the bus and get him." He went
and
for
those listeners, Z is your
it's
son.
My son. He went and got him. Came out. He said he didn't have no money. I said, "That's okay. I got you. I'll take care of it." And he put his arm around me and said, "I've never been here before."
Wow.
Chick-fil-A. I've never been here before. So, you know, I got the gift of gab. So I'm like, okay. So I put my arm back around him. I say, "Well, this is the menu. You got spicy chicken, got this and this and this, that, and the other." And he was listening. And so I didn't talk about the sauce. We get up to the game. He said, "I want a number 1 large with a lemonade." And they said, "What kind of sauce?" And he turned around and looked at me. I said, "I'm breaking him in. He just think he's the only thing he knows is barbecue. So let's talk about, they got Polynesian and the Chick-fil-A sauce. So let's give him a couple of those and see what he thinks. And we're going to see what happens." So we got the things, and I got on the bus, and I was like, wow. I watched a little kid in front of me that wasn't even tall enough to look over the counter and say, "I want Polynesian sauce." you know?
Yeah.
And I got a kid on my team that grew up and had never been to Chick-fil-A. Think about that.
Yeah.
And this kid was ineligible.
Things we take for granted, right?
This kid was ineligible. And I've been riding him because he's got the talent.
Yeah.
And the first time in his life, he made the honor roll last 9 weeks to play ball for us. In his life, never knew he could do it. But we've been pushing academics. We've been pushing being a man. We've been pushing growing up. You can do it. And he done it. And he ate the Chick-fil-A for the first time. And he got a team basketball suit. And he got a team shoe. And you just see the look on his face to be a part of something.
Yeah.
And he's moving forward. That's why I want to do what I do. Because if it wasn't for the Richard Penegers, when I was a kid, they came in my house and took me Christmas shopping.
Yeah.
Me and my sisters. And they still
parts
in my mouth.
That was through the Rotary Club, wasn't it?
Yeah. Through the Rotary Club.
Yeah.
It came in my home. And we're lifelong friends to this day for people giving to me.
Yeah.
And all he ever told me was to give back.
Yeah.
And that's why I do it.
So you're paying it forward.
Paying it forward.
Wow. Maybe we should just stop there. Jeez whiz. I mean, how can you follow up that? So that's a great story, Troy, and exactly why our community, why I'm so optimistic, about our community and the things that are happening. So we touched on what is it fair? Is it right? Dwayne mentioned that, and maybe I hope I didn't misunderstand him. Naomi, you can smack me if I'm saying this wrong. There has already been, you've already had some of your kids do some work or at some services at First Baptist. Kind of just maybe touch on that real quick, that you already actually had them out there doing some good work out there.
Yes, sir. We actually went to a church service there at First Baptist, and our basketball team actually did the whole service.
Yeah.
Mr. Fred Nelson actually did the sermon for that Sunday. Z actually got up and did the responsive reading
did he really?
Service. Yeah. He got up and done that. The guys lit the candles, and they done the whole service. Dwayne came over every week and worked with the guys at the school, and the guys, they just bought into it. First time a bunch of them been in the church in a long time, and they got in there, and when I tell you they knocked it out the box, they knocked it out the box. And everybody was very impressed with what they done, and all I did was cry the whole time. I literally sat in the service and cried the whole time because I was just so proud, because now they get it. They understand you got to pay it forward to give back to the community that has given so much to you.
Well, I had to, I don't want to embarrass my middle daughter, Hannah, but I will admit that when she was a senior, we have a youth Sunday every year, more than one actually, at First Methodist, and she was a senior. She and another good friend of hers who went to NC State, but they did the sermon. Mm-hmm. And matter of fact, I could pull my phone. I don't have it in here on purpose, but I could put my phone. And that video that we took of her giving that sermon is still on my phone. Mm-hmm. And it is it's got to be one of the proudest moments for a parent who grew up in a church and found a great youth program for our kids at First Methodist, and we're still there. We're getting ready to be done with the youth program. As we were talking beforehand, our youngest is about to be finished with high school. But that is. So I'm listening to you as you're sitting there, because I think I know you well enough that you're viewing these kids as your own. Yeah. And so I know that's how you view that. So I can imagine what that would be like. Sitting there, because I can recall sitting there in the church looking around. Is this really happening? Is my daughter really doing the sermon? Exactly. Right. I mean, of course they had done stuff in the church growing up, maybe doing a reading here or there, but not getting up and doing the sermon. I mean, and of course we have multiple services, so they did it in multiple services too that day too. So anyway, sorry, like I told you, Troy and I get off track here. We'll be talking for 3 hours before you know it. So, gosh, Troy, that is that's really good. So I'm going to ask you a kind of a follow-up question. The stuff that you're doing, and you kind of touched on it, but what do you envision you know, the kids you're working with now, they're going to graduate and they're going to move on. So a few years from now, you're able to look back, you see some of the kids later. How do you envision that impact? What do you, I kind of know what you're trying to accomplish, but maybe for our listeners, what are you envisioning that you can look back with some of these kids? You know what we did was worthwhile and it was impactful and it was worth the time. Does that question make sense?
Yes, sir. For me, it's to see the guy. It's nothing like seeing somebody grow and getting something that's young and have no idea what's happening. And then you get to sophomore year, they kind of know a little bit, but think they know everything still.
Yeah.
And they come into a junior, and then they go into that senior year, and they're like, okay, he's the man. He's ready to go.
He's ready to be the leader or whatever.
Ready to be the leader, ready to lead this team. And then when they leave and go off, and you have prepared them to go stick and stay. Because in our community, what's been happening, I feel, is that we're prepared. And we are mama boys, most of us. Because I grew up in a single-parent home. I was a mama's boy. And the first time I was really challenged was when I got to school and that coach or that professors don't take that late work or whatever. And we haven't prepared them from all those little things from that freshman, sophomore year. That's why it was important to sit those 3 out.
Yeah.
Other day, last night, because it's going to get tough.
Yeah.
You can't get up and ride to Raleigh every day. You're going to have to figure it out, and I'll talk to you on the phone about what did you do.
Yeah.
You got to go confront him. You got to talk to him. You got to stand there flat-footed, shoulders back, look him in the eye and say, hey, what can I do to whatever situation I'm in? What about when your roommate takes your stuff?
Yeah.
And you come back and you like, that's mine. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's conversation. And for most of us, from my era up to now, they never had that conversation of tough situation when stuff is wrong. I had one kid, one of the kids that we had to sit out, just going to share a little bit, missing first period. When you don't go to work, you don't get paid.
Correct.
Every day you come in here, you're at work to do the right thing so you can be paid on Tuesdays and Friday nights. And you didn't come to work. So you're not getting paid. So you're going to cheer. And when I look at film, if you wasn't cheering, you was pouting, you're not going to play the next game. This is life.
Yeah.
And when you go to school and you lay in the bed, and you get academically ineligible, and then you got to make that phone call home, it's no neat in line. And the other 2 guys that messed up, I say the worst thing you can do is lie. Because you lie, you're going to have to keep telling it. So what you do, for what you done, you go sit down flat-footed, shoulders back, look them in the eye. I did it. This is what I done. And guess what? You're going to have to take that, whatever they give you, but they're going to respect you because you didn't sit up in here and tell them a lie.
Yeah.
Even though what you done was wrong. You got to do it. And so I feel like if we slow walk and build that, they'll come back to school with a family, with a degree.
Yeah.
Maybe working for gas and sheet and metal. You feel me?
I do, absolutely.
Feel me?
Yeah. I mean, that's
what it's about.
Actually, somebody I follow, a guy named John Gordon, who's a leadership guy. But he has you hear that phrase "tough love." He actually reverses it and calls it "love tough," because you
like that.
You love first, then you can earn the tough part. They're going to respect you enough to understand what you're trying to accomplish. And I actually think most of the time they do understand. But so many kids, listen, we probably spoiled our kids, and I've seen it, but yeah, it's these helicopter parents or whatever you want to call it these days, trying to bail kids out all the time. Listen, I was probably guilty of it. It's funny how Rachel is so different. You have different kids, right? They're all different.
Yes, sir.
And we were I tell my son, unfortunately, sorry, son, we made our mistakes. You were our practice kid. We learned all the mistakes there.
Yes.
That's why Rachel is so much better.
Sorry, kid.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Alex. We learned, later. But that's such a great point. When I look back, I played that sports all the way up through high school, and I can remember clearly even going back to youth. Super young, baseball and soccer. I played soccer at the Boys and Girls Club, and I played baseball at the Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club. I can remember those coaches, and I can remember the teachers more clearly, the ones, frankly, that were tough on me. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily the ones that were easier and wanted to be buddies so much, but and then I'm lucky. I go to church with Jim Ware, who was my, middle school, or back then it was junior high football and baseball coach. Gotcha. And I still tell him when I get the chance, the impact he had on me, because he convinced me that I could, he was maybe the first adult male that was telling me I could be something, I could be a good athlete, I could be a good student, I could do all these things. And so just the way he treated me, it wasn't necessarily exactly what he said all the time, but so man, this is good. This is really good stuff. So, man, we could talk about this all day, Troy. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. We're going to shift gears a second. I got one more question to ask you before we get into these Gaston County questions that I warned you about. So, this is and you've already answered this, but I'm going to make you answer it again, and maybe specifically, because this is podcast we're focusing on good things about Gaston County, and this is obvious one. Why would you say Gaston County is better because of what you're doing with these kids, and the opportunities that you're allowing them?
I just think Gaston County, for me, it's just been it's a place where anything's possible.
Yeah.
The key thing is do you believe it? With what we're trying to do with our kids and with the kids at our school is to show them you're just as good as anybody else. You just got to set yourself up and just believe. Yeah. And just know somebody's going to see it. And then when people see it, you get it. Always be ready, always be prepared, because you never know when the opportunity is going to come. A man's not prepared is not prepared to take over. Yeah. And so we just that's what I try to put in them, and just being prepared. The funny thing, even when I go back to last night, we had 3 guys, key guys, that didn't play. But the guys in the first half, they were timid. They knew that Ashbrook got a really, really great team this year. They really good. And they hit them in the first half, and we was right there. I mean, we was up 20 points.
Oh, gosh.
And Ashbrook fought back. And it's another teaching thing. You can't never stop fighting.
Yeah.
And that's what I just think Gastonians are fighters.
Yeah.
You got to fight for what you want. It's not necessarily with your fist. It's just believing. Yeah. It's just believing.
I like the phrase. I had listened to a podcast just this morning, and he talked about successful people being scrappy, not quitting. I love that phrase. I never really thought about that until today, but just not quitting and being, I just like that concept. And in my fact, it was one I shared with my leadership team here. It was such a good one. So that's some good stuff, Troy. Is there anything else anything I haven't asked? Maybe be clear before we finish. We'll make sure if there's anything else you want to share, we'll give you the last word before we finish up. But before we shift gears, is anything I haven't asked or anything else you'd like to share before we jump into these Gaston County questions?
Just thank you for giving us a platform to talk about our young people.
Absolutely.
I'm really thankful for this. I've been listening since I got the invite and doing a great job.
Well, I appreciate that.
And giving people the opportunity to talk about what's good in Gastonia.
Oh, yeah. And there's so much. I mean, listen,
that's the key.
We're 116 episodes in. We've already got others scheduled. So as long as people are wanting to come on and talk, we're going to keep doing it. As a matter of fact, we've been doing it so long now, we may start having some of these organizations come back in to give us some updates, on some of the things going on. Well, Ken, so Troy, you've been a lifelong Gaston County resident, so we're going to call this the First Methodist Youth Hunter Huss Speed Round of Questions.
Oh, Lord.
But we don't have any yet because I come up with a great creative name every week. That's a good sound effect, Naomi. All right, so first question, Troy, favorite Tony's ice cream flavor?
Butter pecan ice cream.
All right,
Got
you know
the
what?
best.
That's a pretty popular answer. How about Sundrop or Cheerwine?
Cheerwine.
Favorite local restaurant?
Favorite local restaurant, I would say, is Ball's Grill.
Okay.
Ball's Grill.
How about favorite, besides basketball, favorite outdoor activity or favorite park here in Gaston County?
I like to go to Crowder's.
Crowder's is nice, isn't it?
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
That's a really very popular answer. All right, this is a super important question, and there's only one correct answer. UNC Duke or NC State?
UNC. I'm sorry.
Dang.
Sorry.
You know the correct answer, though. I appreciate that.
I know the correct
First,
answer.
I don't know if you remember, I'm a Wolfpack and Janet's a Tar Heel, so
Yeah.
We have.
That's why me and Miss Janet get along so well.
Exactly.
Thank you, Miss Janet.
How about, what is something very few people know about you?
Something very few people. I'm a loner. I love to be by myself.
Okay. Yeah, some occasional, I say, everything I'm involved with between business, family, kids, community, that occasional, I have to admit, I like that occasional lunch. I'm just go do some reading or just something on my little running. I like to go run.
Right,
Sometimes, most of the time, I'm running with people like Dustin Lett,
Yeah.
so I'm not alone. But sometimes I'll do it on my own. So yeah, I appreciate that. How about maybe a book or blog or article or another podcast you listen to? Anything you could share with our listeners? Anything along those lines? I know everybody's not a reader like I am, but I like to ask that question.
You know what? I ever since I didn't start the podcasting is fun because when I got the invite, I say maybe I need to start listening to this. So I started listening to all the Gastonia stuff, went on YouTube, and just started listening to them in the car, and so now I find myself on Apple Music podcasting,
Well,
and that's just like I want to hear people talk.
You can find a podcast on pretty much any topic.
Any topic.
It's wild, isn't
Yes,
it?
any topic.
So I'm kind of I have what I call a love-hate relationship with technology and with phones because they're so distracting. But I think that's an example of where they can be so powerful. Mm-hmm. Between YouTube and just podcasts or anything, you can just find a podcast, a story, a video, or something about any topic you want to. If you need to learn something, man,
yes.
it's just a great place to go. All right, so we're going a couple more questions, Troy, and we're going to finish this. You know what? You kind of already answered this question, but I may ask it again because remembering that this is about Gaston County and why it's good. So besides the work you're doing with the kids at Hunter Huss, the stuff that, this is just right down my alley. I'm loving hearing this. But why, besides that, why would you say your Gaston County is such a great place?
Well, I say it's a great place because it's opportunities here.
Okay.
Great opportunities here. We got it's a place where you can really grow. It's not too busy.
Yeah.
It's a place you can really go, and it's got great people in here. Just sometimes I feel like we just don't take the opportunity to get to know them.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I'm grateful for, that I was able to meet people and keep relationships and hold on to numbers and always just remind, like, hey, I need to tell him thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I just feel like when we learn how to, because it's becoming a melting pot. We got all kind of.
Yeah, we sure do.
Because when I was growing up, it was just pretty much African American, Caucasian. Now we got a melting pot.
Yeah, we
now.
sure do. Yeah.
Got people, all kind of people, and they're good people.
Yeah.
You're always going to have your ones.
Sure.
In anywhere, everything you do is going to be somebody.
Anywhere.
But my thing, you can't hold everybody accountable for one person's mistake.
That's right.
Get to know them. And so that's why Gastonia is beautiful to me.
All right. So here's another big question. So knowing what you know now, Troy, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
What advice would I give my 21-year-old self? Never stop dreaming. Had some things that happened in my life I stopped dreaming, and I stopped believing. I was going through some tough times, and because I'm alone. I'm always alone, and you may not know this. You started reaching out to me. I think you read a post of mine.
I did. Yep. I think I remember that. Yeah.
And I came out my shell. And I understand it. I needed to give something back. And when COVID happened, a great friend of mine, Mr. Jeff Simpson, opened up his farm and let me take kids down there to work with him. And so we was working out in front of donkeys and horses. And the kids was playing with the horses, and we were swimming in the pool, and they was running through the woods, and I was just keeping them in shape, keeping them busy, keeping them at the house, keeping them active. And I just want you to that is something that if I would have kept pushing forward should have been here a long time ago, but ain't no time better than right now.
Right, yeah. Kind of like that old saying that, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is today.
That's it.
Right. I love that. I love that saying. And I'm a lot of things you've said. It took me back to I can't remember who said this, because I'm a big quote guy. I'm always sharing quotes and all kinds of stuff like that, aren't I? So I think might have been Jim Rohn, but I'm not sure. And I'm going to paraphrase it. But he basically said, the day somebody becomes a real man and person, not just man, that's the way it was quoted, is the day he takes responsibility for all of his decisions and all of his actions. And I don't think at 20, as an example, I had a concept of that. Unfortunately, sometimes I think it takes experience and age to come to have perspective on some of these things. That's why it's so important for men like you to be doing what you're doing.
Yes, sir.
Because you can you help somebody see that and help them maybe avoid some of the mistakes that maybe you and I made, some of the dumb things we might have done. Because I did some not so smart things when I was 16 to 23.
Can I add something? One thing I tell my boys at the end of the week, raise both hands. And only person, it's a right decision to be made, and it's a wrong decision to be made. And the only person in between that right and wrong decision is who? It's you. When you make the right decisions, you reap those benefits. When you make the wrong decision, you reap those as well.
Yeah, yeah.
They may not come as fast, but it'll slow walk you down. And so that is something I give my guys every day. It's like the only person between the right and wrong decision is you. You got to make the decision. And you got to live with the consequences that come with the decision you made. And so that's something I try to give those guys every day, the decision, because when we break the huddle and you get in your cars to leave, all it is decisions to be made. And if you make the right ones, you'll reap them. And if you make the wrong ones, you can reap those as well. And sometimes they're right on spot.
Yeah.
And sometimes they may be 10 years or 20 years down the road. But it'll come back and get you.
Yeah.
So be honest and be truthful and make the right decision.
Yeah, that's an example, I'm afraid, for a lot of young people. And when I was young, I just didn't think that highly or to that level, Mm-hmm. What's the big deal, right? I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Well, right. Sometimes it can be something not so great that can happen. So, but Troy, this has been great. I just appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the person you are, going back to, how much fun we had and maybe, and I do have the luxury too of that 11 or 12 years I coached youth sports through First Methodist. Some of those kids are old now. I mean, my son is about to turn 25. So right. I'm seeing some of those kids now in the real world, what's the phrase? They're adulting now. And it's interesting. And now I'm getting ready to, with our youngest getting ready to graduate. So the next group that I was fortunate enough to be involved, they're getting ready to move on. So it is rewarding to see those kids. It's also rewarding, frankly, when I occasionally see one of those kids. You know what? As a matter of fact, I just texted with one yesterday because one was his birthday. Mm-hmm. He's 20, just turned 22, and his response was, "Thanks, Coach." Yeah. I mean, he's 22, so that was 11, 12 years ago when I was coaching him. You know, so yeah, that kind of stuff is rewarding, and so my point there is. It's not only great for the kids; it can be rewarding for the people involved too, right? I mean,
it is.
Sometimes we think it is hard work, and it is got to be intentional. But my community work, sometimes I find myself feeling guilty because it is so rewarding. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
But anyway, so told you I give you the last word. I always finish up with a thought or a book recommendation, and I'll do that afterwards. But any last words or anything you'd like to share? I know this isn't like your normal. Sometimes we have nonprofits on here, we have individuals, but anything coming up planned with First Baptist or anything?
Well, we actually want to try to go back to them tomorrow. We got the ribbon cutting at the new men's warehouse they're doing in Gaston County.
Okay.
So the varsity basketball team will be at the ribbon cutting.
Okay.
Miss Raquel from headquarters in California invited us out, so we're going to go represent that.
What time is that? Do you know?
It's at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay, so this will be released tomorrow morning.
Yes, sir.
Early. So maybe there will be some people that will hear this before that time. So
so we'll be doing that. And if anybody
we're recording this on Wednesday, by the way. I say so things like everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Okay. And also, if anybody want to do anything to help to get young men at Huss,
yes,
it's you can want to do it by check. You can reach out to Hunter Huss High School. In your and your memo section, you can put varsity boys basketball.
Okay.
And just write the check out. You can drop it off in the front office to Miss Tina Seebeck. That's our financial person. Okay. You just bring it up to the front. Miss Jackson will let you in the door, and they'll lead you in the right direction for that. Well, that's good. And if it's all possible, tell them to see if the coach can come down and say thank you.
Okay. Sure.
Because I'll be at the school. I work at the school as well, so I'll be there. So if you come by, and I would love to reach and shake your hand and tell you thank you. So.
You know what? I wouldn't doubt it, right? That's kind of the point. I mean, there may be some listeners out there, maybe some former Hunter Huss Huskies, right, that are just hearing for the first time the work that's happening over there. So that's good to hear. Well, Troy, listen, I already said this, but I appreciate the work you're doing. You're making an impact on Gaston County.
Yes, sir.
I'm fortunate with all my community interactions to see. You know, we got one office in downtown. We got one office in West Gastonia. So, you know, I'm over here all the time, and between United Way and Gaston Together and the Community Foundation, these organizations that I've been so fortunate to be involved with, I see a lot of what's going on here. I also see a lot of the issues that are going on in our community. But there's so many good people trying to work on these things as well.
Yes, sir.
So again, it's great talking to you, and as always, and my book recommendation and thought for the week, I was very intentional about picking them, knowing what we were going to talk about and knowing that Troy was going to be here. And this is actually, I'm cheating because this is a book I shared, way back one of the early episodes, but it's Truett Cathy. And Truett Cathy was the founder of Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
You know, we were just talking about Chick-fil-A earlier. But he wrote several books or was involved with it, but he wrote one called It's Better to Build Boys Than Mend Men. And he was involved with a lot of youth work, and even had him and his wife started a camp down in Georgia that was for young men who may have needed some of that encouragement, right, in that work, and to keep them, like I like to say around here with my F3 group, kind of keep them on the path. Mm-hmm. And then my quote or thought for the week, again, is another one that I was intentional about, and it's a repeat from many, many episodes ago, but it's from Proverbs 22:6 that says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." Ultimately, for me, as a community steward, as a parent, as a long time ago, it's been a few years ago, coach involved with the youth around here. Ultimately, that might be our biggest responsibility, is how can we guide the youth? How can we advise our youth? How can we just be there when something might be needed? So again, take those two things for what it's worth. But I think those are two good. It's a great book and a quote from Proverbs that I think really applies to the work that Troy is doing here in our community, helping us make it a better place. So to our listeners out there, thanks so much for taking time to listen to today's episode. Please continue to spread the word if you can about the podcast. And please don't hesitate to contact us here at our email address, which is podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And please follow us on all our social media platforms. And as Naomi continues to remind me, give us a good 5-star rating. That helps the podcast get noticed. Thanks again to Troy for being our guest today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Naomi Hunt and Amy Anderson from GSM Services. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.